All right, basic rules, the handout. This is the last part of our discussion about writing. So when we are doing a visualization, as we discussed, we've got our caption, our headline, our source line, all of these kinds of things. So we've put together a sheet on basic rules. It's posted in Slack in presentations. I want you to use this whole basic rules packet as a resource when you're writing and producing your data story, right? It's really important. So one of the things we ask is, do you need numbers in the lead? Ask yourself that. This is a story from the BBC, from their Russian bureau. Spitz against Staffords. How and why did the dog breed fashion change in Russia? So there's data behind this story, but let's look at the lead. In the 1990s, Russians more often chose thoroughbred and bigger looking dogs. A decade later, on the contrary, house breeds like Spitz and Chihuahua began to dominate. So there are numbers behind this. This is not a general lead about how, dogs are popular in Russia. It's a specific lead that points to the data, but it makes these sort of generalizations that we don't need numbers for. They used to do this, now they do this. And we explain what we did. The Russian BBC service analyzed the RKF, which is like their AKC sort of animal group, analyzed RKF data on breeds, the number of registered puppies of which exceeded 1,000 per year, right? So if they had a breed that had more than 1,000 puppies registered, that's what they looked at. In 2000, there were 22 such, and in 2017, there were 48 breeds. And this was originally in Russian, so I did Google Translate on it. I don't think this translated. What did we think? I think it means like, what did we do? How did we do this? So they explained, this is what we did, right? We looked at the data in these ways. It explains what the organization is, that sort of thing. And there was a graphic. Now, because this was on the website, sort of a PDF, or it was a static graphic, the Google Translate didn't pick up the language. But if you wanted to go to Google Lens and aim it at this, you could translate it yourself, which is kind of cool. I'm not going to do that for you. I'll let you do it. So I don't know exactly what this says, but basically it's still not so hard to read. In 2000, these were the dogs. We kept going through here. 2017, these are the dogs. And my guess is that essentially, here are the big dogs. Then we went to these down here. It's pretty simple. It's got the BBC. It has a source of the data. I think that's probably what that is. It's got probably the names of the dogs. That's what we're talking about for different colors. And a little explanation and a headline. So that's what we need to do. The rules are posted in Slack. They're also linked on the final project assignment. So here's a few rules. In general, no question leads. Just answer the question. Don't give me a question. No general observation leads. Nothing like the cost of college living or the challenges of paying for college. Get right to something interesting that you found, the point of the story, or a person's story that leads to the point of the story. So what's the issue with this lead? According to the San Marcos Police Department police blotter, there were 1,572 welfare concern calls made in 2018. So what's this story about? Lots of questions, right? So how about this one? Police answered 135 calls for sexual assault at San Marcos apartment complexes in 2018, and of the total 135 assault calls, 83 had a report written, 2 resulted in arrest, 7 were referred to another agency, and 2 had no contact order filed, and 1 was canceled. Oh my goodness, so much. This one, too, General Hillside Ranch Apartments is home to students and families near Texas State University since 2003. Okay. So we really need to do something that draws the reader in, right? Not so many numbers, not confusing, and not so vague. So how about this one? If we're going to read this lead, according to the San Marcos Police Blotter, not everybody knows what the police blotter is. This is a very specific number, so unless you need to use that very specific number for a purpose, we might just say more than 1,500. And welfare concern calls, what is that, right? So 2018, that's good. We can bring this down to the number one reason police are called to San Marcos apartment complexes is to check on the mental health of residents, according to city data. Like, that's essentially what this says, but this helps me understand it. It happens so often that the police department created a special unit to handle the calls. That's what the story's about, right? Here's this thing that happens. There's a special unit to handle the calls. Now, we might start it with the story of the unit or a person who was affected by this, but at least this can help the reader understand what they're about to encounter. Too detailed, right? Too general. Yep. Here's another thing that I see all the time. Amount versus number. So when you're typing these words, sometimes I see amount and sometimes I see number, and there is a specific time when you should use each of them, right? The amount of time, something that isn't easily quantified. The number of hours in the day, okay. The amount of time I have to do something. So amount versus number. The number of apartments. So, but I like to even just think about it in time, right? So the amount of time means a whole bunch of things, or the number of hours it will take to do something. Make sure you get those right. Look it up in the AP style book. Very helpful. All right. What do these have to do with anything? 3. That's what we really like. No more than 3 numbers in a sentence. Really no more than 3 numbers in a paragraph. Keep it simple, right? So keep the numbers to a minimum. In the writing, let the numbers really speak in detail in the visualization. And are we going to use 44.6% or 45%? Generally, we're going to say 45%. We're going to round that. And then how about this? 34,530,120. 530,120. It's just hard to say that, right? So we're going to use 34.5 million. We definitely are going to round and abbreviate those big numbers, right? So we can understand them. How about this? What's the issue here? At Sync, the average 1-bedroom rent price is $1,382.50, with the minimum 1-bed rent being $1,025 and the maximum being $1,740. This means, depending on the factors such as square footage, a 1-bedroom unit can either cost you $1,025 per month or $1,740 per month, a noticeable price gap. So, I bet you could pick this out. A, way too many numbers. B, what's going on with this? Why do we need the 50 cents? Just go with 1383, right? That would be rounding. And we repeated the numbers, right? We repeated these 2 numbers. Way too confusing. Keep it simple, okay? Don't do this. If it's a noticeable price gap, which you can point out if you've got the numbers, maybe that's the point. There's a noticeable price gap between even the different versions of 1-bedrooms, right? So too many numbers, too many repeated numbers, and don't use cents. Don't use cents. So this is what it looks like. It's really not a very long document, 3 pages. Posted in Slack, linked on the final project assignment. Use it. Got questions? Just talk with either one of us. We're happy to help. Good luck.